Now of the pandemic, and the thrift stores are closed, the fabric stores are closed down. There aren't any yard sales where I could possibly go and buy any sheets, and I don't know what to do. I need to sew. I need to let my creative energy out, and I'm starting to panic. I don't know where else I could possibly get fabric. Oh, well that will work. Hold on. We are going to use these curtains right here to make a dress. And we are going to use those curtains to make this dress. That one right there, it is the Simplicity 8363 or 8363, if that's how you want to say it, by Simplicity. It's a Firefly path pattern. I'm really excited. I had gotten most of the Firefly path patterns like 2 years ago. I've been wanting to use these patterns for like forever, so I'm finally going to do it. So I have 2 of these sheery type curtains. I have this little valance type thing, which is kind of neat. I think that I would probably use that for the center part of the bodice. I can't think of words today. So I decided that I'm not going to use this fabric because it is trash. I knew it was trash, but I thought it might work, but then I started seam ripping it apart, and well, no, it's not gonna work. And then I have this sheet that I got probably from a thrift store. I don't remember where I got the sheet. I know it's not one that like my family owns, but I'm going to use, well, I own it now, but like it's not one that was on one of our beds, and it's not like I stole it from anyone in my family. Like I bought it with the idea that I would eventually use it to sew something. And then I also have this really cool fur coat thing that I got from Walmart for only $3. So I'm going to do something with that as well. And then I have some interfacing down here. Here's the interfacing. My version of boning. Some thread that are very close in color. Actually, I think they're the same color, but they're different brands. Never heard of these. They're very old threads. Got them from an antique store. And I don't have grommets, so I will be doing hand sewing the grommets or the eyelets or whatever you call them. Or I'll be hand sewing eyelets where the grommets should go. And then I don't have any ribbon that would be good for this, although I think silver or gray would look nice. So I'm just going to use a shoelace that I got from the Dollar Tree. 1 hook. I don't have any eyes, so I'll just make an eye. And then I thought it'd be cool to kind of do like a little crown thing. I'm not going to make the foam armor pieces that the pattern shows you how to make, but I thought it'd be neat to kind of do like a little circlet crown with these broken necklace chains that I have. I'm going for kind of like a winter warrior princess type thing. This is kind of supposed to be like a warrior type princessy type thing, I think, but I'm going with like a snow theme, which is kind of funny because winter is over. So the parts of this costume that I'm going to be making are the bodice, the skirt, and this little cape. I guess a waist cape. I don't even know what you would call that. I don't know. Now before you take any pattern pieces out of that envelope and start cutting, I have a very important announcement. Once you find the pattern pieces you need, you're going to take paper cutting scissors and you're going to cut out your paper patterns that are not fabric and not with fabric scissors. Now once you have gotten your paper cutting scissors, you can start cutting out those very paper patterns. Even though they're thin, they are still paper, kind of like tissue paper. Anyway, I thought that I was going to be a size 6 because generally I use the Simplicity's kids patterns in the biggest size. So I was like, oh, of course, I'll be a size 6, like the smallest size in the adult pattern, but that is not the case. I came out with a measurement showing that I was more of a size 12. But I did not use the size 12, I decided to use the size 10 because I accidentally cut out a smaller pattern and I had folded everything up nicely and put it back in the envelope, and I was not going to take it back out of the envelope to cut out the size that I actually needed. Plus corsets are somewhat adjustable, aren't they? So I have all of my corset pieces cut out and I'm highly confused. We go in 9, 10, 11, 13, 12. Why isn't it 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? No idea. This bothers me quite a lot, but anyway, that's it. And then I have both of my overskirt pieces. There's one on top of the other if you can't tell. And then I have all 3 of my skirt pieces. I have my gauntlet right there, different waistbands and bias tape and such, and then the corset tops up there. So that is all the pieces I will be using today, because I am not making any of the armor pieces, and I am not making the neck corset and such. So I went ahead and I cut out the fabric for all of the skirt pieces and the waistband, and I put the interfacing onto the waistband as well. I thought I would show you a progress video. I was gonna say progress picture, but this is a video. So I thought I'd show you a video of the progress. I have both of the side front pieces sew into the front piece of the skirt, and you can see there are both of the slits. And then I was like 100% sure that I filmed the making of the skirt and made sure that I got some shots of the pattern instructions. So I'm guessing that maybe I accidentally kind of deleted them somehow. So I am so sorry, but there is not any more tutorial left for the skirt. Like, that's it. That's the only footage I have. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. It is very easy though, so I hope that you're able to figure it out on your own, because you are a smart cookie with a lot of common sense and you can read a pattern. I have faith in you. Here we have the lining, the inner facing, the outer fabric, and the overlay. I decided I would be more detailed with the corset, especially because it can be a bit confusing when you read these instructions, and the fact that you're watching this video might mean that you are wanting help deciphering those instructions. So we're going to go ahead and do number 1, apply interfacing to all corset sections. I have gone ahead and I have done that. I don't know if you can tell, but that is the side with the interfacing. And then it says stitch center front seam of corset, center front, 9 sections, matching notches, all that. But the thing is that I want to put an overlay on top of my fabric pieces. So I'm going to take the right side and put this on top facing the right side. And then I'm going to sew long stitches all along the edges, baste it on, and then once I am done doing that for all of the pieces, I will go ahead and stitch everything together like so. In this clip you can see the hand basting I did. They're just very big stitches to keep everything in place. You can see it a little bit better on the back because the color's a bit different. So now I have to do that for everything. So I decided that there was no way I was going to hand baste every single piece of this bodice. So what I decided to do was just pin down the, why can't I think of the word? The sheer material, I guess, onto my front bodice pieces. And then I sew them up, and when I'm done, I take out the pins, and it has worked very, very well. So I think this is a technique, if you could even call it that I will use in the future for sure, because man, it saves a lot of time. Now maybe you will mess up a little bit, but in the long run, as long as you're not sewing too fast, it works really well. Alright, so this is the bodice so far. It looks pretty good. I'm very, very happy with it so far. I do need to put in the boning, so that's what we will be doing next. Also, this is the life of a sewer. You cannot ever wear black. As much as I like wearing black, you can't. Alright, so now I need to clip the curve, so I will do that just by basically cutting this way and then that way, kind of making little triangles and cutting them out on the curvier parts. And then on the least curvier parts, or the not as curvy parts, I suppose, I'm making no sense. Hopefully you're a visual learner, because the audio makes no sense. And you're just going to cut here as well in the not as curvy parts, but cutting out triangles is fine as well. They kind of show that in the picture. And then when we're done with that, we're going to press all the seams open. So I have this extra bit of fabric. You will not if you're not doing an overlay on yours, but you'll just press it open like that. And then we're going to use these to form casings for our boning. So it says to stitch 3 1/8 inch, or 3/8 of an inch. Anyway, we're going to sew on each side, and then we're going to prepare a boning, and I believe that just means like cut to the correct size and round out the edges so it's not pokey, and then we'll insert the boning just like that. So we're actually going to do 2 boning channels right next to each other. So it's going to be a really structured bodice but I do not have boning because I use cable ties for my projects. Now this cable tie is like 1/8 or 2/8 of an inch too wide, but that's okay because it's still going to work. I just can't sew my casings right here. I gotta sew them a little further, but it will still fit and it will work out fine. So if you are using cable ties or a wider or slimmer boning, maybe keep that in mind because not all boning and cable ties are made alike. But yeah, I'm going to do that, so I'm just going to iron this out and clip everything first, then iron it out, sew in my little channels on each side, and then put in my boning. So that was step 2. Here you can see one of the channels, or 2 of the channels rather, and I just sew it along. This is what it looks like from the other side. Ooh, it's so hard to see because it's like white on white, or kind of like an off-white. Okay, anyway, they look very, very nice. I didn't measure or mark, I'm just kind of eyeballing it and using my presser foot to kind of help visualize the distance, I guess. But like I said, I'm just kind of eyeballing it and they still look pretty good. And the boning or the cable ties, they fit. I would suggest, you know, testing it before you sew up all the channels to then find out that they're all too small. The bodice looks so good. I am so happy with it. Like, it's springy and the boning looks great and the channels are so straight. I'm so happy. But now it is time to complete the lining. Step 3. We're going to stitch the seams of lining same as for the corset, omitting the stitching to form the casings because we ain't using more boning. Because man, I used a lot. Like, I don't have many zip ties left or cable ties. I'm gonna have to buy more anyway. With right sides together, pin lining to back edges. Stitch, trim, seam, whatever that means. So I have done this, and I went ahead and I flipped it. So we did the turn the lining to the inside, or like I said, I flipped it. So now all I have to do is essentially make a little pocket here and a little pocket on the other side and slip in my boning, and then we'll be done with number 4. Super easy. So I have my block for binding right here. It's super important that you do not forget the notches because it will be incredibly hard to line everything up. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to do steps 5. Basically, we're just going to sew, matching up the notches, and then just cut a tube. Also, another very important thing is to make sure that this lines up properly or your binding is not going to be a very great binding. Now maybe this confuses you a little, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to go like this. And then you'll take this and you're matching up the notches. Then what you're going to do is, here, I'll show you this way because this will be a little bit easier for me. Okay, there. Then you're going to sew this. Alright, so now it's stitched. I'm just going to open it up. And there, now we have this. So next what we're going to do is cut in a spiral. A tube like this. Now you could make your own bias tape or buy some, but this is a good way to make bias tape. Unless you had a big sheet like I did, and then you can make one continuous line. But I'm trying to do everything by the pattern, so I made it this way. I'm having to voice over this because it sounds like somebody took the dishes and decided to go to war with them, like little butter knife swords or something. There's a lot of background noise. I don't know if somebody was cooking or washing the dishes, but basically we're going to follow the instructions for our binding. We're going to do this by getting our measuring tool, and we're going to measure out the measurement that we need. And the reason I am avoiding that exact measurement is because I don't remember what it was, and I cannot see this little measuring tool. It looks like maybe it was 2/8. I don't know. Oh, 3/8. The instructions say 3/8. So we're going to measure 3/8, and it looks like we must be focusing on the first line of instruction number 6. I don't know. Anyway, I went ahead and I took my measuring tool, it looks like, and I folded up my fabric on the long side of this binding, and then it looks like I took my iron to iron this. but oh, I must have had to prop my phone up because I couldn't iron one-handed. All right, so I went ahead and I pressed. We're good there. So we'll continue on. It says, with right sides together, pin the unpressed edge of the binding to the upper and lower edges of corset, having raw edges even and ends extending 3/8 inches beyond the back edges, folding in fullness at center front. Stitch in a 3/8 inch seam. Well, I'm having to voice over again because I live with people and they're loud and I can't just demand that they be quiet whenever I feel like I want them to be quiet. And this probably isn't going to be the last voiceover. But basically we're taking our binding and we're putting the right side up against the right side of our bodice. We're matching up the raw edges or the unfinished edges and we're making sure that it overhangs by about 3/8 of an inch. That way we can finish it off when we're done. The overhanging of that 3/8 of an inch should look something similar to this. We're going to do that for that corner, and that corner. All right, so that's what that's going to look like. So everything is stitched on. It looks pretty nice. So now it is time to go on to the next step of our instructions. So we're going to fold the extending end of the binding back over the edge, then fold the binding so that it is encasing the cut edges and covers the stitching at least 1/8 on the wrong side. Pin in place, placing pins on outside. On outside, stitch in the ditch or groove seam, being sure to catch in the pressed edges. On the wrong side, if you prefer slip stitch, press edge of binding in place. Alright, I'm going to slip stitch. I think it looks nicer. I'd rather hand stitch anyway, so that's how I'm going to do mine. I'm going to do that by flipping my bodice over, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of this excess fabric away, just because there's a little too much, and then I will fold this over and slip stitch. Alright, so here you can see in the front that I have folded over my binding and I have pinned it in place on this side. So that's what that looks like. I also folded in the sides, so that looks pretty nice as well. Just your friendly voiceover again. I went ahead and I made the back panel and I put the interfacing on it and all that good stuff, and then I took my bodice and I whip stitched it onto the bodice. I did this in accordance with instructions 9 and 10. When I was all done with that, it was time to put in the grommets, except that I didn't have any grommets, so I went ahead and I marked my fabric with the pattern piece just so I could know where the grommets were supposed to go, and I poked holes in with this fancy little thing, and then I went ahead and I put in eyelets, which are kind of not grommets, but basically eyelets are made out of thread, and you're just sewing up these holes almost like a buttonhole so that you can keep the fabric from unraveling. It is not hard to make eyelets, but it is really, really, really time consuming. Like, really. So I thought I'd show you what I'm doing. Basically, I took this little owl, or maybe this is the owl, not an owl, it starts with an A. Okay, anyway, and this thing pretty much slices through whatever I want it to slice through. It's really, really sharp, so you definitely have to be careful with it. Anyway, so I poked all these little holes, but the holes are itty bitty microscopic tiny, not really that tiny. So what I'm doing is I was taking my little stork scissors, and the little beak is small enough to get into the hole, and then I'm just jamming it in as far as I can and widening up, and then creates a nice big hole like one of these. that I can then turn into a grommet. So I have to hand sew 20 grommets, and it's going to be insane. Or not grommets, 20 eyelets, because I don't own grommets. So yay, that's fun. Dun, dun, dun. I have 2 whole eyelets. That's it. Dun, 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 dun. 2 out of 20. So that makes what? 10%? Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Let's try this again. I have all the eyelets done on just this side. This side's not even started yet. 50% of the way done though. All right, the bulk of the dress is done. So we have the skirt and we have the top, or the bodice, if that's what you want to call it, or the corset even. So yay. Doesn't this kind of remind you of Elsa? I feel like this would be a really great Elsa pattern, or really this corset would be good for any kind of pattern. Now, these patterns that I'm about to show you are not the same, but they are very similar and they're both simplicity, so I feel like you definitely 100% could use this for Elsa. If you'll see, here's a skirt that I made. It has 2 slits and the hem, or the length of the skirt, is even all around. But if you look, simplicity also has this pattern too, the 1215 or 1215. I don't know if you're supposed to say it like 1215. I really don't know. Anyway though, you'll see that there's the Elsa skirt. It's also fully lined. This skirt is technically also fully lined, except that I decided to make a sheer skirt. And it has 1 slit. And then it also has more of this train in the back of the skirt. And I'm not sure if it's closed with a zipper or Velcro, but it's very similar. Not exactly the same. This piece on the Elsa costume is a little more narrow. I've never used it before, but I've looked at the pattern pieces. So although I wouldn't say that they're the exact same pattern, they are both simplicity. They're both pretty simple from the instructions. And I think that if you didn't want to buy the Frozen pattern right here, you could definitely use this pattern to make an amazing Elsa costume. So who knows, maybe I will make an Elsa costume someday. So I hadn't planned on filming any of the cutting out of the cape, or not the cape, but the thing that goes around your waist. Let me look up that word real quick. Okay, so the pattern calls it the overskirt. Besides the point, but I did want to show you this one thing. It is lazy person tip 101, I guess. So here it is. Instead of pinning down the patterns to your fabric with pins, just lay books on top. Yes, they work as weights. You could really use anything, but I like books because I have lots of books. Now maybe you're wondering about some of these books. I don't remember that book. I read it a while ago. It's Frozen, so I mean it's probably good. The Princess Bride, obviously. I'm homeschooled. Say No More. That's a really good book too. And this is such a sad book. I remember when I was little, I would literally cry when my mom read that to me. So anyway, these are all great books. They also really have a great second function to be paperweights. So yeah. So next up, I'm going to be doing the overskirt, the belt, and the hip armor. Except that I'm not actually doing the belt or the hip armor. I'm just doing the overskirt. So essentially, we're just going to sew all of our panels together. We're going to gather them and sew the waistband in just like we did for the skirt earlier. And then instead of making a belt and using snaps, I'm just going to sew a ribbon on this side, and I'm going to sew a ribbon on this side and make it look nice and clean, and then we can just tie it together with a ribbon. Now, since this is so simple, I decided that I was going to try something new. I've seen a lot of YouTubers doing this thing where they like throw their fabric in the air, or they like, I don't know, zoom their camera into the fabric and then they zoom out and boom, their garment's made. So I figured that this would be a really easy garment to try that on, you know, because it's simple, and if the magic doesn't work properly, I can always just hand sew it. But if this works, this is something that I might have to try with like every sewing project, because like what a time saver. So I cut out all my pattern pieces right here and the belt, and I guess all I do now is throw it in the air and then all of a sudden it's going to sew itself, just like Sleeping Beauty or something, or like a Barbie movie. So let's try this. Gotta get all the pieces. Don't want to mess this up. Here we go. Did it work? It did work. Oh, that is some awesome magic. You don't know how much time this is going to save me. I'm gonna do this with every single sewing project from now on. But then you wouldn't have any tutorials to watch, so forget it. This is super easy, so I'm not even gonna try and explain any of this. We're just going to do that. Basically, 1, 2, 3. Super, super easy. Now maybe you're wondering how to get the perfect gauntlet fit. Well, personally, I know that I have little chicken bone wrist and arms, so I know that I'm just going to go with the smallest size possible. But if you're unsure, I believe it goes this, just go like this, and then wrap it around your arm, and yeah, it looks like it's gonna fit, and then just go with that. Really, it doesn't matter because it has a lace-up corset-y thing, so pick your favorite number. I'm gonna pretend my favorite number is 6. That's why I picked 6. Maybe your favorite number is 14. Then go with size 14. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure it actually does matter, but it's not a huge deal, so. I don't really follow patterns very well. I just kind of cut out the general shapes and then I just sew them together, but I will try and follow the pattern for you guys, the instructions, just in case you're making this too. So this is what your gauntlets are going to look like once you've sewn everything in and put in your boning or your zip ties or cable ties. So now what we need to do is put in tons of little eyelets or grommets. I am not putting that many in. I don't know if you can count. I hope you can count. That's 9 and that's 9. So that'd be 18. So each of these need to have 18 little hand sewn eyelets, and there is no way I'm going to do that because that's insane. So I think I'm gonna do 5, 5, 5, and 5. So I'll do 20. I ended up doing 6 eyelets on each side, so 6, 6, 6, and 6, which is 24 total eyelets. I decided to do this outside in the sun just so that I can enjoy the weather. I'm trying to harden off my little plant seedlings, so I thought that I'd keep them some company. Dun dun dun! And here is the costume reveal. I thought that I had some lighter gray leggings and I would prefer to wear those underneath. And I definitely want to get some really good photos in this costume, but I made this now that the snow has melted, so I don't really have any good snowy pictures, so that's unfortunate, but I will do that next winter. I'm always inspired to make spring fairies in like October and winter queens in like April. I don't know why that is. Thanks for watching.